All my life I had to fight. I say that line like every 5 minutes. Ciao Bellas, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel. I also go by It's Ray Jen on my TikTok and Instagram platforms. As you can tell by the title, we are switching gears and not doing a full review on The Color Purple, so lessons that I feel like I learned after watching. So if you haven't seen The Color Purple, the musical, and you plan on watching it and don't want any spoilers, then save this one for later. But if you've already seen it and want to hear my thoughts, then keep on watching. So my friend and I, we made a confession on my Instagram stories that we had never seen the original Color Purple. Please don't revoke our black card. That movie was just too long, and honestly when it came out I was so much younger and I think the storyline went way over my head, so I could never fully watch it in its entirety. But this movie, although it was 2 hours, it didn't feel long or drawn out. I feel like it stayed true to the original. Like, for the most part, I got hints here and there of things that they would mention, and I'd be like, oh, that's what that line meant. For instance, something I always say but never even really knew the full context of it was when Sophia goes, all my life I had to fight. I say that line like every 5 minutes, but I never knew the full context of what she was talking about until watching the musicals. I feel like they stayed true to the original, but also gave them their own little twist and making it still entertaining and easy to follow. Even though it took place during the early 20th century, the 1900s, it still felt like things that we could relate and understand to this day. There are 5 things that stood out to me when I watched the film. So one of the major themes that I felt that they kept highlighting was the power of sisterhood. And that was demonstrated through all the ladies, but most especially with Celie and Nettie. And they are the 2 sisters that we are introduced to in the beginning of the movie, and we see their bond, and though they get separated early on in the movie, which was heartbreaking, we see how they were still able to try to find their way back to each other ultimately. And it's just so powerful to see how that bond can never really truly be broken. Even though Celie's kids were taken away from her, her village, essentially her sister, was still able to be there as a mother figure for her children, remind Celie's kids of who their biological mother was, and had that sense of connection to their mother when they finally did meet her at the end. The next theme that I picked up on was self-worth. And I feel like this was beautifully shown by way of Sophia and Suge. I feel like both of these ladies embodied something so beautiful that during that time, it was probably taboo for a black woman to have such self-worth as both of them portrayed. Both very different and opposite. Sophia had to fight to get to this level of self-worth where she realized that she wasn't going to tolerate anything abusive from any man, any figure, be it black or white, male or female. And I really thought that was so powerful for that time, for her to be so firm in that way of thinking, because it's definitely not something that's encouraged in our society. Contrast seeing Suge Avery embracing her sexuality and embracing her true passions by way of song and dance, even though it did go against her upbringing in the church. She followed her heart, and ultimately there was a sort of reverence around her. This woman who dares to defy the norm. It was beautifully seen by these 2 women, and how their self-worth helped inspire Celie to find her own self-worth later on in the film. The third point that I felt was beautifully portrayed was the courage in sharing your story. Almost every one of the ladies had their own backgrounds and things that had shaped them to where we pick up with them in the film. And it had seemed as if Celie was suppressed in using her voice and telling her story until she comes across each of these women, inspire and embolden her to start speaking her truth and realizing I don't have to hide anymore. She can embrace the ugly parts as well as the beautiful parts because they all make up her story. The fourth thing was strength in community of women. I really loved to see how each of these women were able to ultimately come and support one another in various ways. We're talking about early 20th century where women did not have rights. We clearly see that, and it's them defying the odds and still making a way for themselves. And ultimately, when they stand together, they're each able to rely on each other's strengths during different points. That's so very important to this day, that women really do need to support one another, stronger in numbers. It's a powerful thing when we rally amongst one another and realizing that we don't need to compete. We can accomplish great things when we lean on one another and use our strengths to move forward. And the fifth and final theme that I picked up on was taking a leap of faith. I feel like each of these women in different points of their lives, they took a leap of faith, which is what ultimately led them to where we find them in this story. And for Celie, we see that she ultimately takes that leap of faith when she decides that she's going to leave Mr. to go and pursue a new life with Suge. And it was during that moment of her independence of leaving that ultimately set her up. She can be a store owner and realize to tap into her own strengths as well. Those were the 5 things that I picked up on during the movie. Let me know if you've seen it, if you've seen the original, if there are any other themes that really stuck out to you. I would love to read them down below. Meet me in the comments. If there's anything else you'd like to see me discuss on my channel, please leave suggestions down below. I do have some really great videos coming up. Stay tuned and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.